Good evening, everyone. This is Joe Garcia, your host for today's incredible webinar. We're going to get started just in a couple of minutes. You know, if you have some team members that don't know about this webinar, give them a call, get them on this webinar. They're going to be blown away by this technology. And we've got the incredible Dr. Lorenzen, formulator of clustered water. We're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. Hello, everyone. This is Joe Garcia, Global Ambassador here of NHD Global. It's really honor and pleasure to host today's incredible webinar. I've got Dr. Lee Lorenzen. Dr. Lee Lorenzen is going to go into his background, and it's a really impressive, incredible background here. And he's going to talk about a product, Cluster X2, that we've had in our product line for a number of years now, and it's now global. I personally have been on this product since 1995, the very first version of this product. I've been consuming it since 1995. And I recognize as a person who's always been very concerned over my health and my family's health and how to prevent disease and how to maintain health on a daily basis and create the right habits. And I also recognized early on in my life that water was critical. If we don't have water, we don't have life. Think about that. If we don't have water, we don't have life. We don't have water, we don't have life. And Dr. Lorenzen and I just toured Peru. We were down there for 9 days. We had incredible sold-out events. And he went on, and it reminded me of how powerful this product is. Sometimes when you take something for so long, you take it for granted. And when I saw him up on stage, I got to get Dr. Lorenzen back on a webinar. And yes, this webinar is going to be recorded, so he can share why you should take this product. You can share. He's going to also share with you the background of this product and how it was formulated. He's also going to maybe share with you some of the difficulties he's had in the medical community in understanding this technology, and and what he had to go through, from quack science to now he's being vindicated because all the research that's out there on water and clustered water technology. And I'm going to open it up after this webinar. There's a few questions I'm going to ask Dr. Lorenzen, which will encapsulate what this product's all about. So, Dr. Lorenzen, thanks very much for joining us here today.
And thanks, Joe, for hosting. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn this over to you. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is being recorded. Make sure you take some notes because you're going to be blown away by the information that you're going to be hearing here over the next 30 minutes. So over to you, Dr. Lorenzen.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And again, thank you, Joe, for all the work you do. You don't know it, but you've been a hero of mine for a long time. So I'm just grateful for all your hard work. And yeah, if I may, I'd like to just kind of start with a very brief background information. I was actually doing my initial undergraduate studies at University of California, Berkeley. And at that time, the Department of Biology was rated #1 in the world. So it was an honor to literally learn from the best scientists in every conceivable specialty. And after I finished my work there, I was actually an instructor of biology at Chapman University, and actually taught biology on a floating university program where the ship goes around the world and we teach biology and life sciences. When I returned from that trip, I took a job as a staff researcher with the Department of Pharmacology at the University of California, Irvine School of Medicine, while I was also doing graduate work at California State University in vertebrate biology. And it was at that time that my wife, who was very healthy, young, basically just 32 years old, a tennis player, just the most vivacious, beautiful lady you could ever meet. And she contracted what's called a mitochondrial disease. Now, the mitochondria are the little energy factories in the cell. And one heart cell, one cardiac cell has 5,000 mitochondria. These are critically important. Without mitochondria, you just don't survive. But if you have a mitochondrial disease, the energy in the body just literally fades away. So she went from being healthy and alive to not being able to lift her arms off the bed. And that's what really stimulated me to go from kind of in someone who was inquiring about water into full-fledged moving in that direction to try to find an answer for my wife. And why is water so important? Well, first of all, there's a researcher by the name of Gerald Pollack at the University of Washington who calculated that 99% of all molecules in the body is water. So we're a big bag of water, and it's not strictly how much water you have, but where is that water located and what is the structure? You can go to the next. So, and interestingly, one of the people that stimulated my early research was a guy by the name of Dr. Albert Szent-Györgyi. And Szent-Györgyi won the Nobel Prize for his work with vitamin C, but very few people know that the last 10 years of his life was researching water structure. And when I was searching for an answer for my wife, I found his book buried at the Yale Library, and the book's name was An Introduction to Submolecular Biology. And that was another piece of the puzzle for me to find a way of creating stable water. Next. So why is it so important? Well, we know that obviously it delivers nutrients, it removes cell waste. Without water, we can't function at all. You know that there are seeds found in the Egyptian pyramids that are dormant for thousands of years, that add a little bit of water and they come back to life. And in humans and animals, it's critically important because as we age, our ability to hold, retain, and utilize water correctly is really compromised. Now, the body contains about 75% water. The brain is about 80%, and in the cells, they're about 90%. So and not only is the amount of water in the cell system are really critical, but where it is critical. If you're a healthy young infant, and you've seen an infant's hands where they have the little dimples on, on the knuckles because they're so full of water that they have cute little dimples everywhere. And but as we age, as you get past the age of 35, that water, that ability to hold water really drops off. And the reason for that is oxidative damage. As we age, and it's caused by ultraviolet light, by magnetic fields, by poor diet, poor other things, the cells are attacked and become like Swiss cheese. So the ability to hold water pressure really drops off. So in a young infant, 70% of the water is inside the cell and 30% is outside the cell. As a 70-year-old person who has a lot of health problems, that may be reversed, where only 30% is inside and 70% is outside. And that's called edema. That's where congestive heart failure is precipitated. So obviously the objective is to switch that ratio back to where it was like when we were children. Next. And are there different types of water? Well, obviously that was part of our initial research. Yes, go ahead. Now, what we did is I worked with Japanese researchers for many years, and we developed a technique of flash freezing water in a laboratory and then photographing the crystalline structures. In the upper left, you can see it's tap water. There's no structure. It's toxic. It's not healthy at all. And those on the left are naturally occurring waters. Now on the right, we start with distilled water, which is a cuboidal type structure. But after we run through our patented process of lights, magnets, and temperature changes, we end up from the distilled water to the microclustered water. You see there on the right. So, and now we're finding that every formulation we create has literally its own signature, very much like its own fingerprint. So that's where all our research is going now, is trying to look at how that fingerprint relates to function. Next. So, I'm having the honor now of working with the Professor Glenn Ryan, who was a professor at Harvard University and Stanford University, and he has now joined our research team. And he's shown that bound water is what he really calls dead water. It can't move. It's the more common water in older people. And when you're a healthy individual and you drink water and you're very healthy, you can convert this bound water into a healthier form of water. But as people who are aging, that ability is lost. So we've become much more prey to dysfunction. Next. So with what Dr. Ryan and other researchers have now shown is that there are two forms of water. There's bound or dead water, and then there's free or active water. And when you drink our solutions, this starts to mobilize the water in cell systems. And we've got many human tests. We've done diabetes tests in 336 patients in China. We've done tests with AIDS patients in Africa, and endurance athletes with Olympic swimmers. So we have literally 20 years of publications to prove that our water improves cell function and recovery. Next. So why is the cluster water so special? Next. As I mentioned, the water in young infants is virtually all 100% clustered. And there's a researcher by the name of Dr. Seiji Katayama at the University of Shizuoka in Japan. And he showed that literally by the time we're just in our 30s, that biological water has dropped 56%, to 56%. And as someone at the age of 58, it's 23%, and that's why the ratios change. That's why most of the water in older people is outside the cell. And there's a researcher by the name of Professor John Watterson at Monash University in Australia, and he wrote a phenomenal paper saying that the water cluster actually creates the pressure inside the cell. Now, if you have a car and you're driving around with 4 flat tires or 4 tires with very low air pressure, the car doesn't function well. It's actually dangerous to drive a car like that. But you fill those tires up and you get a normal air pressure, the car functions the way it was designed. Well, one of the unfortunate things about aging is that our ability to create these biologically active forms of water is really challenged. So very much like vitamin C or the B vitamins or other essential amino acids, these aren't things that you can produce and make and replace. You have to supplement the diet every day by doing this. Next. So why did I invent cluster water? You'll see on the picture on the left is my 3 grandchildren with my wife, and Penny is 68 years old in that picture. And I'm accused of taking my daughter out to dinner when I take her out because she looks so young, and she's been consuming the water longer than any other human. And keep in mind, this was a woman 30 years ago who couldn't move, who couldn't lift her arms off the bed. Now she beats me at tennis. She runs circles around even the grandchildren. She's healthy and alive and vibrant. The medical doctor, our medical doctor at the Institute for Progressive Medicine in Irvine, was so impressed with her health that he said, I have to sell this product in my clinic. So he's been selling the cluster in his medical practice for more than 10 years because he's seen the results in my wife. And just last January, we went to India. We've opened plants in India and Africa. We're opening these plants all over the world to not only help NHT and distribution, but to create waters that will help people who are very ill with various types of diseases, because it helps carry medications more effectively. Now, the original stimulation for this was I wanted to get my wife well, and she was so ill at the time that I started working on this that I wanted to take her to Lourdes, France, where the healing spring of Lourdes is very famous, but she was too ill to travel. So fortunately, I found scientists from all over the world who helped me, could take samples of these springs, flash freeze them, and take them back. Now, in Lourdes, the healing springs are world famous, and thousands of people drink from these springs every day and report wonderful results. But I've interviewed hotel owners in the area, and they said, look, if you drink from the source as it comes right out of the ground, this product is incredible. But if you put it in a bottle and take it back to your room, it's gone. There's no effect left. So that was an indication to me that there's something structural about this. And also, if you look in John chapter 5, there's a very famous spring called the Pools of Bethesda. And the story was that when the water was stirred, the first people into the pools were healed. Now, interestingly, the National Institutes of Health and all the major research hospitals for the United States government are in Maryland in a city called Bethesda. They named that city after the healing springs of Jerusalem. Next. So what is cellular hydration? It's important for all cell function. And a Nobel Prize awarded several years ago was only literally in just 2005, was for understanding how water moves. I mean, if you can believe this, that you would think this is such a fundamental requirement for understanding cell function, we would have known this years ago. But you have 37 trillion cells in your body, and researchers at Stanford and Yale have found that the average cell may contain 2 billion water molecules. Now, if it's not structured, it's not going to help structure proteins and improve cell communication and genetic expression. So you have to make sure that water is in the ideal state for ideal cell function. So how does the cluster solution work? Well, we've shown in multiple human trials that particularly in people with physiological disorders, that their ability to transfer fluids through those cell membranes, through those little channels, are compromised. Now, in an infant, you may have several, hundreds of these what are called aquaporin channels in every cell, and if that cell is healthy, each one of those channels is moving 1 million water molecules per second. That's how active water should be. But if you have diabetes, if you're older, if you have other types of diseases, that flood of fluid moving back and forth through those channels actually diminishes to virtually nothing. So as a result, we build up cell waste. We can't deliver nutrients properly, and we can't take that waste out. And there's a material that has been discovered called lipofuscin. And lipofuscin is to the cell what ash is to your fireplace. When you burn wood in your fireplace, after all that, everything grows cold, all yours left is with white ash. Now, lipofuscin is the ash of metabolism in your cell, but if you're not properly hydrated, you can't remove it. Now, I've seen in situations where someone will undergo open heart surgery, and they turn a UV light on and turn all the lights off on the operating table, and the heart glows purple because there's so much lipofuscin, so much cell waste stuck in those cells, because the lipofuscin fluoresces at ultraviolet wavelengths. Now, that is something that's contributing to cell dysfunction and a breakdown in cell communication. You've got to get rid of that. How do you do that? You have to hydrate properly every day, and you've got to get these water channels working again. So it's kind of like, you have a garage, you have a kitchen door, but you stack all your kitchen garbage in front of the door. You can't get rid of it. You can't block that entrance. So the cluster solutions help open those water channels, help mobilize fluids. That's why it sounds odd, but sometimes people who start with cluster X2 will notice that even their urine may have a strange odor to it for a few days. Well, that's not abnormal. That's actually cell waste that's been removed, and you're excreting it. You're giving the body a chance to function the way it's supposed to. Next. So what is the science and technology behind cluster? As I mentioned, there's a Professor Gerald Pollack at the University of Washington, and we all know water exists in three phases: it's in liquid, it's a gas or a vapor, it's clouds, and it's also solid as ice. But Professor Pollack said no, there's actually a fourth phase, and that fourth phase is gels, very much like Jell-O in your dessert. The water, if it's properly charged, holds structure, and it gives structure to proteins and DNA and other really important enzymes. But if that those cellular hydration levels aren't properly high enough, you can't form those gels. You can as a young infant, as a young child, but after the age of 36, you saw it's already dropped basically 50%. So, it's important that you utilize these solutions on a daily basis and do other things to help diminish cell damage. Recent research has just come out that something that's very common in all of our lives may be contributing to cell water breakdown. And I hate to tell you this, but it's the cell phone. And I will be posting a written article about how cell phones may be contributing to dehydration and cell water damage. This has been published at Harvard University, so it's highly reputable, highly respected research. And it's one reason now that whenever I speak on the cell phone, I try to use only the speaker format, not hold it in my hand, and try to keep it as far away from me as possible. So I'll be disclosing more research on that in the coming months. Next. So I've been awarded 3 United States patents on the process, and it kind of like a lot of researchers, you find out a lot of what doesn't work before you find out what does work. And so I've had the help of physicists, biochemists, other scientists from all over. I've asked a lot of questions and I've received a lot of guidance. So this isn't strictly a one-man show. This is a result of many years of help by many scientists who really believed in what we were trying to do and have helped guide us and get us to where we are now. Next. So this treatment process, basically what we do is it's very much similar to what actually happens in the clouds, but we amplify the energies many thousands of times. We take distilled water, and while it's in a gaseous phase, it's exposed to very strong electromagnetic fields. For example, the Earth has a magnetic field of 3 Gauss, right? This is a magnetic strength. We're using 19,000 Gauss, and this is all in our patents. And so we've learned how to process and treat these solutions, and then stabilize them with trace minerals so that the water mimics what has been found in healing springs, but rather than lasting only minutes, we're finding it's lasting years. And that's why we can now make this product here in laboratories in California and ship it to you wherever you are, with the assurance that you're getting a highly effective product. Next. So as I mentioned, I've been awarded 3 US patents, and we now have more pending. And Professor Ryan, who I mentioned from Stanford University, gave a paper to the International Congress on the Physics, Biology, and Chemistry of Water that was held in Bulgaria last October. And he's now joined our team, and we're finding new ways to make these products even stronger, even more effective. And of course, NHT will be the recipient of every bit of research that we're developing, because our goal is to make sure that you and your family have the best capacity to maintain your health. Now, what about clinical studies? We've been actually doing a lot of studies for many years. The largest study we did, which was published in the Asia Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition, was actually also published by PubMed, which is the National Library of Medicine in Washington, D.C. So this was reviewed and accepted by many scientists. This was published also in the Science and Technology Daily, the most respected technology and science journal in China, and signed off by the head of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. And what we did in this study, we basically gave two types of water, either purified water or our water, to 336 diabetic patients. And we tracked what happened to their health. And in a matter of 6 weeks, the improvements were very, very significant. And that gave us the proof that just structuring the water alone would really improve health. But now when you add other important nutrients to that, it makes those nutrients work even better. Next. Also, in another study, we had noticed that that athletes would come and buy the product from us and say, "Gee, you know, I feel better when I drink this. I recover faster, and I don't have the muscle soreness." So, and my wife and I have actually donated and supplied U.S. Olympic swimming athletes with the product since 1999. And although I can't mention a lot of their names, we do have videos that we can show when you come to some of our live presentations. But to prove that this worked, we actually gave mice either regular water or the cluster for a 30-day period, and then we'd put them in a bath to swim. And mice are very good swimmers, but you know, any animal or any human gets tired after a while. And the mouse that drank regular water, they could only swim for 16 minutes, and then they got so tired they gave up, and we had to pull them out of the tank. And they're fine and they recovered quickly. But if they drank the water, they didn't swim for 16 minutes, they swam for 38 minutes. So this was an indication as to why U.S. Olympic swimmers were doing so well. Next. So as far as any other ingredients, what we're finding is the water not only helps cell function, but it also helps you absorb more effectively. As a matter of fact, on our labels that we manufacture for just plain cluster water use, we submitted all that information to the Food and Drug Administration, and they allow us to make claims saying that our water improves metabolic efficiency, improves nutrient absorption, and promotes cell water recovery. And we're the only water in the United States that are allowed to make those claims. Now, in addition to that, we've added other important ingredients to the Cluster X2, which is pomegranate, a very well-known antioxidant, cranberry, which really helps improve cell function, particularly for urinary function, and a grapeseed extract. And this grapeseed extract has a very high concentration of a compound called resveratrol. And resveratrol has really been established as an anti-aging molecule. As a matter of fact, the research has been done in France for many years, and they've called it the French paradox. And here, the French eat very high levels of fat, a lot of cheese, but they have some of the best health in the world. And if those French people were drinking white wine, they had the same unhealthy characteristics and statistics as Americans. But if they're drinking red wine, they were very, very healthy, even though they were eating high-fat diet, which is completely against what a lot of researchers have shown. And they said, well, what is the answer? Why are the French so healthy? And it's because they're drinking red wine. And the active ingredient in red wine is in the seed and the skin of the grapes, and it's called resveratrol. And we have a very high concentration of concentrated grapeseed extract, and that's part of what you're using every day. And even though the dose is very small, it's very powerful. So what are the key benefits? The Food and Drug Administration has said that we can legally claim that that the Cluster X2 delivers nutrients more effectively, increases cell hydration, improves cell function, and promotes cell waste removal and elimination of toxin, and of course helps change that ratio, increase the amount of water inside the cell so that we can function like we did when we were younger. So how do you use the product? It's very simple. Here in the United States, we can purchase distilled water very inexpensively. So what I do in my own house is we add 30 cc's or 2 tablespoons of Cluster X2 into 1 gallon of distilled water, and then keep it at the refrigerator. And I drink at least 3 cups a day of that. And so one 4-ounce bottle is going to make 4 gallons of beverage. So it's highly active, highly biologically potentized, and it will last in the refrigerator for a very long period of time. Once the 4-ounce bottle is open, we ask that you keep it in the refrigerator and to make sure it's kept fresh. But we've shown the product is highly safe, highly effective, and you need to use it consistently every day. And what I recommend is take the Stem Renew, take the Noni, especially with those 2 other products. It really has some complementary effects. But as a nutrient carrier and delivery system, it makes whatever product you're using work even better. So that's why it's become really so important to the health of me, my wife, my children, and my grandchildren.
Dr. Lorenzen, just quickly, because we have an international crowd here, 1 gallon is about 4 liters of water, just for everyone to understand.
Right, it's 3.8 liters, correct.
Yeah, approximately, yeah. I typically, just to make it easier, I take 6 of the capfuls and I pour it into a gallon or 4 liters of distilled water.
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
Which is about 2 tablespoons. The other thing, just on this slide here, and this is one of the questions I was going to ask afterwards. Why is it important to use distilled water or reverse osmosis water?
Well, what we've done, and Joe, you might remember even back to 1995 that we would we'd say, okay, we'll just put it in a purified water and it would work fine. But we found that if people put it into spring water, that the minerals in that spring water might interfere with the biological activity. So to make sure that that the effectiveness was there, we found it should be just really purified, either reverse osmosis water or distilled water. And interestingly, in that Chinese study with diabetics, we gave those Chinese patients distilled water as the placebo, and they got worse. But if you add the cluster to that distilled water, refrigerate it overnight, then give that to the diabetics, they got better. So obviously there's a change in the molecular activity of the product that's being achieved, and we have clinical evidence to prove that.
Yeah. So on a global basis, Dr. Lorenzen, their distilled water is not readily available as it is in North America. So I know in Peru, when we were down there was a mineral count that was good for Cluster X2, correct?
Right. So Dr. Carrillo was there to lecture with us. He's a pediatrician from Mexico City, and he brought a conductivity meter with him, and we tested a number of different waters and found that the best type of water was the one that had the lowest mineral content, usually less than 30 milligrams per liter. Some spring waters can be very high, like 400 milligrams per liter or more, and we just don't get the same good effect that we do with low mineral. So we really request that the product itself works very well, but what you dilute it into is really, really important. So in China, that we found that Watson's distilled water was very good, and so just become a label reader. Look at, buy a purified water in your store, and it'll give the how many milligrams of total dissolved solids there are per liter, and try to find something that's 50 milligrams or less, and that will ensure that the Cluster X2 is working better.
Great.
So as far as testimonials, we literally have thousands of written testimonials from all over the world, and of course testimonies are wonderful to hear, but they're not scientific. So that's why after hearing so many wonderful testimonies, we decided to spend the money where it was really important, and that is to actually prove the science and establish it using normal scientific procedures. But one wonderful testimony I have, I like to think about is a gentleman in Shanghai who had very severe arthritis. And keep in mind that inflammation is a lot of that can be resolved just by better hydration. But this gentleman had been in a lot of pain for many years and didn't really want to live. I mean, he was in so much pain, and went on the product, and it took a couple of months. But in 2 months, he was starting to move around, and in 6 months, he was out riding a bicycle, and he wrote a letter to me in Chinese, which a friend translated for me, and basically how just hydrating improved the quality of his life. And this has been this type of thing has been heard over and over again. Is that according to Professor Ryan from Stanford University, 70% of the world adult population is most likely fairly seriously dehydrated. And we think that, well, you drink 8 glasses of water a day, that's enough. Well, there's really no scientific basis for that. You can, if you drink 3 glasses of Cluster, that may be better than 8 or 10 bottles of water that has no structure or function at all. So it's really important that you try to get a bare minimum of Cluster in every day. Take your noni, take your Stem Renew, take other products that really help improve anti-aging, such as antioxidants, and you know what it takes to maintain better health. I mean, there was some research done actually in Hong Kong, at Hong Kong University, that a person who drank 6 cups of green tea a day actually extended their life statistically by 7 years, just with a few glasses of green tea every day. So one of very close friends of mine, Professor Z Wang from Columbia University, told me that bit of information. So I drink green tea every day, as well as my Cluster. So I'm doing everything I can to help maintain my own health, and the research is there. So and if you have testimonies, if you can share what these products have done to improve your health and your lifestyle and all that, please share that with your upline, share that with the company, we'd love to hear that we're doing the right job for you.
Well, that was unbelievably awesome. You got better every event that we did in Peru, and you got better today, Dr. Lorenzen.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I watched your presentations for a week, and I'm going, man, this guy is good. I better learn from what he's doing. So you become my sensei on how to present. So thank you for teaching me. So
Well, thank you. I've got a couple of questions here. Just to encapsulate your presentation, how easy I explain the product is, it's like driving a Ferrari, right? So if you get in your basic car and then you go and drive a Ferrari, that Ferrari obviously will get to the destination much faster than the basic car. So when you're
okay.
taking clustered water with the NHT Global nutritionals and products, you're going to get there much faster. It's like driving
Okay.
a Ferrari. The second thing, just a little tip for all of you, is a lot of people comment on my lack of aging. It's people that haven't seen me in 10 or 15 years. They said, Joe, you're always looking the same. So one of the things I've been doing with Cluster X2 is I've been washing my face with Cluster water. So you imagine what it's doing to your cells inside. You splash some water on your face, the Cluster X2, and its incredible anti-aging properties there. Correct, Dr. Lorenzen?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, as a matter of fact, the pomegranate, cranberry, and grapeseed. This wasn't just a random selection. This was based on a lot of research of what are three of the most powerful complementary foods that are on the market that are needed every day by everyone. And they're one of the things that we all confront or have to confront every day are what are called free radical attacks. And I did my undergrad at Berkeley, so that doesn't mean I'm a free radical. But a radical is a highly charged particle with an electron and with an extra negative charge. And what it does, it loves to attack the cell membrane of every cell. And there's a researcher at University of California, Berkeley, who did some calculations on that and said, if you're a healthy 25-year-old man that doesn't smoke, you eat good foods, you're exercising every day, you have over 10,000 free radical attacks per cell per day. So we are inundated with these free radical attacks. And what happens over years of exposure to smog, exposure to cell phones, exposure to electromagnetic fields, and microwaves and other things, and poor fats in the diet and other things, that those membranes are weakened to the point where you wouldn't think of poking 1,000 little holes in a 20-liter bucket of water. You can keep filling that bucket up, but it's going to leak out. And that's what happens literally as a kind of a picture of what happens in an older cell. So what you have to do is give that cell the ability to help pump that water back in. So, and I'm sure, Joe, you've had a flat tire, and sometimes to get to the gas station, you use those flat fix things that inject a material in there, and it kind of goes to the hole and plugs it up, so you can at least get to a point where that tire can be repaired. Well, these antioxidants help slow down those free radical attacks and help promote repair of those cell membranes. So that's why this, in conjunction with the other NHT products, is such a key component to longevity, health, and good functioning. So I hope that all of you will get on the full NHT program, and don't take our word for it. But give it time. You'll see in 60 or 90 days how your health has changed.
Okay, so I have a couple questions, and we'll end the webinar then. Okay, so
Sure.
first question. If cluster X2 helps you get whatever you're taking into your cells faster than your body can, does that mean that if you're drinking alcohol or smoking, would cluster X2 also bring the bad toxins to your cells?
Yeah, well, as far as smoking, interestingly, we've actually shown that that actually helped the lungs expel the waste from the lung tissue. So that was positive. Now with alcohol, that is true, that it will actually enhance alcohol absorption. So we recommend you drink the Cluster X2 on an empty stomach. Do not take any medication or any alcohol with that for at least 30 minutes after you take it. And this was actually based on recommendations from the Food and Drug Administration, because they said this will amplify absorption, and we don't want any medications you're taking to be amplified. They should be taken as directed. So the ideal way is to drink this on an empty stomach and wait 30 minutes, then take your medication as well.
Great. The last question: Why does metal interfere with cluster X2?
Well, keep in mind that we're using we make the water very much like a trickle charger charges your cell phone battery. You know, it's a small amount of electric current, but it takes many hours to build the electrical charge in the Cluster X2. And if you're holding a metal spoon and then you pour that Cluster X2 in the metal spoon, and you're grounded, guess where the energy goes? It goes into the ground. It destructures the cluster immediately. So by using a plastic spoon, you're maintaining that potential that is needed to help change the water as a result. So that's why that's so important.
Okay, and I'm known as the one more thing guy, Dr. Lorenzen. Just one question. Got some questions coming in. Can it be stored in glass container, or does it?
Actually, I still just use the plastic bottles I get at the store, but ideally, glass is even better. So you can do that, but just make sure that if you're using that glass bottle, that after you finish it every time, put some, boil that bottle and sterilize it, keep it clean if you're going to keep reusing it. So just make sure you keep that bottle clean. But no, a glass is even better.
Do you have to boil the plastic too, or no?
No. Well, usually the plastic is kind of a one-use thing, and then I put it in the recycle bin, and then add to a new gallon. So, but if you have your own distiller or your own, like let's say with the NHT water purifier, you can purify water into that glass container and then add the concentrate and then keep it refrigerated. But just make sure you really keep that glass container clean. Don't keep using it over and over again. It needs to be kept clean as possible.
Can it be mixed and drinked right away, or does it have to be refrigerated?
You'll still derive some benefit, but what we did as part of the patent, we found that these healing springs had a signature, was called a 65 hertz signature, and that's why the U.S. Patent Office awarded the patents, that we're the ones that discovered that. But for that 65 hertz signal to be generated, it takes a little bit of time. So ideally, putting it in a gallon of water, refrigerating overnight, and then shaking it. Now you're assured that you've got fully potent product to use.
And last question, I promise. Can the water be mixed with other things and still work, like green tea, smoothies, that kind of thing?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I when I make my protein drinks in the morning, I'll use the Cluster X2 in the gallon and add it to protein. You don't want to mix it all because you don't want a lot of oxygen destroying it, right? But
Yeah.
you put it in for a few seconds and mix it. That works just fine. The other thing is temperature. You can't heat this to very high temperatures. So any temperature above 50 degrees centigrade, and it pretty much wipes out the product. So it can't be added to hot coffee or hot tea. But if you know that, if you are drinking cold tea or something like that, you can add that to it, that water, or even make your tea with, like if it's a cold brew, you can use a Cluster X2 as your base water to make other beverages. Just be sure to keep it below 50 degrees centigrade.
Okay, and just one last thing here. Going back to the using a reusable glass container or plastic, why is it important to wash them afterwards, or throw away the plastic?
Well, with the plastic, it's fairly easy, especially in California, where we throw in our recycle bin and we know it gets recycled, and glass is really better. It's even more ideal. But keep in mind, this is a nutrient-rich product. So even in the best of circumstances, you're going to get bacteria or other things in there that might affect the product if that bacteria isn't removed. And so that's why it's just a good idea to put really hot water in that gallon and just to sterilize it before you use it again. It's just as a safety precaution.
Awesome. You've been absolutely fantastic today. Thanks very much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar has been recorded. So I would recommend every morning, my regimen is when I get up in the morning, this is when you're most dehydrated. And the reason how you can tell that you're dehydrated is by your urine. As your urine is really yellow, that means that you're really dehydrated. So in the morning, I go into the fridge, pour a glass of water, 8 ounces to 10 ounces. Before I do that, I shake the bottle that I have the clustered water in the water. I shake it so it activates the clusters. I pour it into my glass, and I drink that glass with my stem renew, and I also take a noni just after that. So it's real important. That's what I've done for now, 23 years. It's amazing. And taking Cluster X. Number 2, when you're mixing it, quite easy. What I tell my customers, it takes 6 capfuls, and you mix it into distilled or reverse osmosis water, 4 liters or a gallon of water. So, and then you refrigerate it, shake it up every time you're going to drink it. And also, after lunch, Dr. Lorenzen, on a couple of hours afterwards, people normally have that, that sugar, their sugar just drops, right? And that's also a really good time to drink the water, and then just before dinner. That way you're hydrated all day long. I always like to tell people, for hydration purposes, 1 glass of clustered water is like drinking a minimum of 12 glasses of water for hydration. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Lorenzen, for joining us and sharing your wisdom. And you've got an incredible technology here, and we're grateful that it's in the NHT Global product line. Have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.
Okay, thank you.